And hello, everyone. Welcome again to the Church Solutions Podcast. My name is Phil Thompson.
And I'm Steve Lacy.
Steve Lacy, you sound familiar. Do we know each other? It's been a couple of weeks.
I
I'm
don't know. I'm back from the dead.
giving you a hard time. So, Steve has gone a couple of weeks. You had surgery, and it took a little longer than what we thought it would be. Do you want to
Yes.
do you want to open up and share the intimate details?
I don't know about that, but yeah, what was scheduled as a outpatient kind of thing ended up into a
Inpatient.
4-day visit to the hospital,
Yeah.
4-day stay at the hospital. So yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm much better now and everything's been looking good. I'm actually going to the doc for follow-up this afternoon.
Oh, good. All right.
Just-
Well, good. Well, you lost some weights, and so you're probably happy about that.
Yeah.
Although
Before the
we-
surgery, I was not eating, so that was I had the benefit of. I never thought, when I was younger, I'd have a hard time fasting through meals,
Yeah.
but when you're really sick, you can fast a week. So,
You found that out.
yes.
Well, we're glad you're okay. You're good now, so I'm sure you'll get a clean bill of health from the doctor today. So
Yeah, I
good
hope
deal.
so.
So, all right. So let me put you on the spot. What are we going to talk about today?
We are talking about 5 tips for a smooth worship rehearsal.
That's right. 5
Did I get it
tips.
right?
You did. You got it right. Good job. 5 tips for a smooth worship rehearsal. So, uh, this is something that's been a pet peeve of mine for years, and I used to do music at several churches. In fact, a lot of this I got from our mutual friend Ken Ballinger. Uh,
Oh,
Ken and I used to lead music together. Ken was actually our primary worship leader, but he worked for the fire department, so there was a lot of Sundays he couldn't do it, so I would do it. And then there was, my goodness, speaking of sickness and health issues, he had some issues that kept him out for a couple months, and at least once or twice. I mean, he had some pretty serious issues, and and I was doing music before that, and I've done music after that. I don't do it anymore, but I have observed over the years that their worship rehearsals could go a lot better.
yeah. And
Yeah.
from my vantage point, never been invited to be a part of a worship band. Actually, my family and in-laws like to mock me of my lack of any musical talent.
Well, where did your son get it? Chad's?
I don't know. I mean, he's definitely got it, but
Yeah.
he's my wife's side of the family. They are very musically inclined. They can all sing. They all do.
Sing and
Yeah,
dance.
not everybody plays an instrument, but they all can sing and carry a tune. And that's not me. So they like giving me a hard time because I'll
Yeah.
try to sing sometimes and they
Tone
just
deaf.
yes.
All right. Well, look, if you're listening to the podcast today, and you are, if you've got this far, uh, maybe you're not the music leader. Maybe you run sound, or maybe you're, a pastor, senior pastor, or associate pastor. These tips might be something to pass along to your worship leader or worship leaders, and I'll let you decide how to tactfully do that, because I know that's a sensitive area. But I have found over the years that a lot of musicians, well, at least some, are not exactly super organized. Some are, but some are not. I think they're kind of artsy and very
Yeah,
creative.
you're telling me the musically inclined may have some.
Areas
If
that
we're
they
stereotyping people, huh?
yeah, they could use some help maybe in certain areas like organizational things. And one of the things that Ken Ballinger was great at was organizing. And so I learned from him. I'm always into organizing anyhow, but why with him? So we're going to go through this list. So 5 tips how to make your rehearsal a little bit smoother, and hopefully this will get to the right people. So the first one.
Is tip number 1: solidify the song map, key, and arrangement several days ahead of rehearsal.
So what we're talking about here is putting some forethought into this before you have the rehearsal. Several days before would be ideal, where you sit down and you think a little bit about, okay, where's this song going? Here's a set of songs that we're going to do. Here's this song here, Follow the Lord or whatever it is. And this works for people who do choir too. This is not just, bands. This is choir and other things. So, where are you guys going with this? You're going to repeat it several times. You're going to do the bridge. You're going to do, the verses a couple times, all those kind of things. The chorus. Figure out where you're going with that. Not that you can't change a little bit later, but have an idea.
So this is the job of the worship leader, right? He's
worship leader. Yeah.
Got to put all this thing. All these things are worship leader?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. I mean, you can delegate, you can certainly delegate, but this is pretty much what we're talking about today is the music leader, the music director, the worship leader.
So how far out I know, pastors will prepare messages months, sometimes up to a year in advance, right?
Or a few hours in advance.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm unique with my pastor, but he claims to have these messages, scheduled 6 months out.
He does.
How far out would you recommend the worship pastor to have their song set done?
Well, I think there's different levels. I think that, you might be looking at new music to introduce. And so you might be thinking about that a month in advance. Like, I think we need to do this new song, mm-hmm. and so you might put that in the rotation, a month or so in advance. Most of this stuff we're going to talk about today, you could do a week in advance.
Okay.
And I don't see why you couldn't, but again, everybody's different. But I would just say for certain things, specialty songs, or like I said, new songs, or maybe something you haven't brought up, maybe something you haven't had in rotation for a while, maybe think ahead, a month or two ahead. For the list, I would say, if you can get a good 4 or 5 days head start at least, that would be
so this tip one is solidifying the song map, key, and arrangement several days. So why do you do that?
Well, so the main reason, and this is for pretty much, this is the bottom line for almost all we're talking about here, is you want to know, you don't want people standing around, okay? And I see this all the time. People, the worship leader shows up, it's got a stack of music maybe, and musicians come in late, and the people that might be doing the singing are just kind of standing around, and it's a waste of time. And so you want to do all this stuff for several reasons. One is you don't want to waste people's times. Second of all, like if you're working on a key change, and in the song, you want to make sure it's doable. So you want to kind of do that in advance. So you want to make sure, okay, I'm going to lower this song from, G to F or whatever. So I want to make sure it's going to sound okay and it's playable for my musicians,
Is your worship team, I would think another thing, and I'm kind of a noob at this, would be if you get the song map, the key, all that stuff figured out early, then prior to the rehearsal, the people in the worship band or worship can rehearse on their own, right?
Yeah, and that's a great point to bring up. And now with software like worship, what is it called? Worship planning. You can do all that in advance, and I would encourage you. So if you have people like in a certain software that schedules people, Worship Planner is what we use. You guys used to use it. I think you guys use something different now. But it sends out, you can schedule any task for the church. I mean, you can schedule ushers and greeters and all that, but you can certainly do the music team, and there's tools in that where you can put chord charts and you can put a lot of detail. So ideally, if you've got all that figured out in advance, you can put that in the software, upload it, and then people can take a look at it in advance.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did I answer the question?
Yeah.
So
I assume, they'll have the complete music for the songs, and sometimes they'll even have recorded, right? You'll have.
You can certainly do that, and that also is available in Worship Planner. You can have that in Worship Planner, and again, you put some forethought in it and get it out there for people, and then they can drop it in and listen to it in advance. That's really the ideal thing, and we don't really have this on the list, but honestly, there's software out there you can use that is so beneficial for everybody, so that people don't walk in going, "What's this song? Never heard this before in my life," or "What am I supposed to do here?" If you've got all that in there, then they can at least have a little bit of an idea what's happening when they get to rehearsal.
Oh, okay. All right. So our tip number 2 here, I guess these kind of go together, don't they? Or
A lot of this goes together, in my opinion. But yeah, uh, correct copy of the chord chart of the sheet music, the chord chart. And again, what you mentioned earlier, if you've got something recorded, have that in hopefully the right key.
yeah.
And
So if
today,
you're sending it out early, it's probably a good idea to send the right stuff out early. Is that
that's
the
always a
second point?
good idea. Yes, it is. And again, we're looking at stuff here. We're looking at saving time and making it a pleasant experience for everybody. So, nothing's worse than people coming in and you're not prepared if you're the worship leader, and they're standing around, and it just creates a waste of time and a waste of energy, and you're better off, doing some of this in advance. And again, a week in advance usually is okay as long as you stay on top of it.
All right. So tip number 1 is send the song map, key, and arrangement out several days in advance, and then 2 is make sure you send the right stuff out in advance, right?
Right. Yeah. Got to have the right stuff. And again, with software today, you can get a song that's in a certain key, but if you want to raise it or lower it, you can get software today that will do that for you, and you'll set it up so that it's easy to do, and then people are going to actually hear it in the right key. So again, helps the singers too. Really helps them if they're trying to harmonize.
Okay. All right. Are we ready to move on to number 3?
Yeah, let's do number 3.
Number 3 is have a real sound check,
as opposed to a phony sound check. So yeah, so a real sound check, what we're talking about here is not just like, are we on? Hello, are we on? It's actually letting the person run sound really make sure he can kind of tune it in a little bit. And I'm not a sound guy. I remember many years ago, actually it was Ken Ballinger said, "Hey, Phil, you're in radio. Why don't you run sound for us?" Like, if you're in broadcasting, then you should be an expert at running sound, right? Like, no, I'm not a sound guy. I can turn knobs, but, so you want the sound person to have a little bit of opportunity to kind of, I call it tune people in. So, listen to the bass for a minute or two, listen to your singers, try to get them,
so
tweaked
this
a little bit.
is happening during rehearsal?
Yeah, you can do this, it can actually happen, should happen before you actually go through the song set. I mean, that would be my preference. Now, there are people that just do it during the song set.
Oh, I would think you do it during the rehearsal of the song set, but you're talking about, you say, okay, bass, give me a few strums, and then you tune them. And
maybe in a minute or two. Yeah, I mean, we're not just talking, hit the chord. We're talking play a riff,
okay.
Maybe play it several times. So look, I'm just giving you this is my preference. There may be some other people out there that go, no, that's not the way to do it. But
so you go through each
I would go through
member individually.
You got it.
Okay.
I would go through it all before you start running through the music. Okay. And just, the instrument, yeah, it's plugged in, but let's hear it. How's it sound? How's the tone? What do we need to tweak on the gain? And the whole thing, harmonies, work on that, and again, we're talking maybe 7 or 8 minutes, depending on how large your band is or your choir is. Just kind of get it there. And then, in my opinion, you can tweak it a little bit afterwards. But here's the problem. If you just wait until you're running through the music, where you're actually running through the songs, and the sound guy is trying to tweak stuff, it usually affects your monitors. And depending on what if you have an inner ear or if you have monitors or something.
I do have an inner ear. Or you mean?
We need to edit this out. In ears, okay, the in ears. If you have something like that and somebody's tweaking stuff, you're up there and you're going, or you're like, I can't hear Sue, or something changes in your monitors and you get feedback, or you don't get anything at all. If you can do some of this before you run through the actual music, it will help the situation. And
Okay.
then you can tweak it, a little bit. And you're still going to probably have some of that, where the sound guy's doing or sound gal's doing something, and like you're up there going, all right, I hear something weird, but ideally go through it a little bit, not just like, hey, does this work? You see what the difference?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm not sure this is on your list, but this is another question here for you, being the non-worship guy. I would think there would be advantages to doing the rehearsal as close to the actual service as possible. Are there pros and cons there? For, if we have Sunday morning service and, we do rehearsals on Wednesday. Everything sounds great. And then you show up Sunday morning and, oh my gosh, we got to remix, and because just turning things on and off.
I think you have a good point. I think if you can ideally do it as close as you can to the actual, experience, to the actual presentation, to the actual service, that's ideal. In fact, my church kind of does that now. They meet, service doesn't start till 10, and they start running through the songs at 8 in the morning.
Okay.
And they feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, I guess. If you run into an issue, then you only have, limited time to fix it before the service goes on. But I guess you're not really running into issues when
if you're prepared, if you follow our little list here, even if you run into issues, you should be organized enough and prepared enough where, okay, this song's not going to work. Well, let's do this song instead, So there's options, and we do that all the time. It's like, this isn't going to work. This is not good. So let's just go with this one instead. So, but again, it requires a little bit of planning and forethought. Usually on the music director, the worship leader's part, to give it some thought and put some time and energy into it. So yeah, you're right. The closer you can get, in my opinion, the closer you can get, the better. But not everybody can do that.
All right. Okay, so moving on here, number 4 on our list.
Number 4, quattro.
Quattro.
So your vocals, your tech team members, your musicians have got to own. They've got to own the thing. They've got to own the lyrics. They got to know the lyrics. This is probably the weakest. I see this a lot in churches. And here's what I see. People are singing like this, their heads down, and they're looking for the words. And what does that convey to you, when you're out there? I mean, look, we're worshiping, yes, and, our focus is on God. But when somebody's, just doing this the whole time,
For the audio listeners, Phil is looking down towards his toes.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. I forgot we have audio as well as video here. So look, I get it that it's really hard sometimes to memorize stuff. And I have a problem myself memorizing songs. As you know, I tend to get everything mixed up when I'm talking. But if you can at least really work hard at knowing the music as best you can, hopefully you can stay away from just looking down all the time at your feet and looking up a little bit, and being able to smile, being able to have, when you know the music, when you know the song, you're gonna feel better anyhow. You're not gonna be so tense. Right. And expression on your face hopefully will be more relaxed, more happy, instead of your eyebrows are scrunched up and you're like, I can't see that. What is that? Oh no, I screwed it up. And you're saying that in your head. So if you can really own it as best you can, and again, this is where the good worship teams don't get enough credit.
This is happening way before rehearsal then. So that's when you get your week ahead of advance. Here's the song list.
Yeah.
Going through. Okay. Yeah. And I think at our church, and I'm sure a lot of other churches they'll project the lyrics on the back wall.
Yeah, that's a trick.
So that everyone's looking forward, but the worship band can see that. But then one of the things that you talk about tech team members as well is we're required, and sometimes I have been part of the tech team. I'm like, this seems like a kind of a waste of time to be here while they're running through their rehearsal. But the guy driving the lyrics for the whole sanctuary and everything online needs to know.
Exactly.
Because if he gets lost, everybody gets lost. Well, not all the time. It's usually he or she gets lost, and the worship band carries on through.
Yeah, that's a good point. Your people running sound or even people running video, if you've got several cameras and you want to take a close-up shot of the guy playing guitar,
Right.
or you got somebody doing a saxophone solo, or you got somebody doing just a nice solo,
So,
vocal solo,
so those
they
guys
need to
need
know
to
where to
be,
go. Yeah.
yeah. And so during the rehearsal, they can
Yeah.
get their cues and go, okay, when this thing's live, I know to be here or there. So, yep,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. There's a lot
Okay.
of this. And here's the other point, too. And that is, when you really own something, you have more confidence in it. So it's going to show in your body language. It's going to show, if you're an actual worship leader, in your ability to lead people,
Mhm.
But if you're not comfortable with it, and again, I understand shooting the lyrics on a wall, behind everybody that's in the congregation, that's okay. But then you still get people, they're still kind of looking at the lyrics, they're not looking at people, and they could try to fake it and try to act like they're, worshiping and trying to see the lyrics. But, again, if you can know these lyrics and know your music, especially if you're a guitar player or whatever, it will make a big difference in the presentation.
All right. Okay. So now our last tip here. Tip
What
number
is-
5, have a plan and goals in writing for your rehearsal.
Yeah, this is pretty much a deal where, you as a worship leader, you want to say, hey, we're going to start right at 7. So this is the basics. Okay. So the first thing is worship practice starts at 7. So what does that mean? Well, if I'm the new guy, does that mean, I bring my bass and I show up at 7 and now I got to plug this thing in and hey, does this channel work? And, wait, let's see, is this in tune? Oh, wait, let me adjust this here. If you say 7 o'clock, everybody shows up and tunes up for 20 minutes. Okay. But if you mean let's start actually doing music at 7, what does that mean to everybody else? That means they got to get there before 7, and especially if you're a musician, enough time so that you get in there, plug in, tune up, do whatever you have to do so that we're ready to rock and roll, so to speak.
You have in our notes here call time versus start time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
call time is, what is the call time?
Well, so call time is okay. We're showing up at this time. We're all here at this time, and start time might be a little different. So start time might be 25 minutes later or whatever. I don't know.
Okay.
Again, it's everybody's different. So this is not like, oh, you got to do it this way. I'm just throwing this out to you.
Yeah, I guess a big part of this would just be communicating what you mean when you say rehearsal is at 7.
Yeah.
Then you need to communicate we're gonna
start
the first song run through at 7, or we're gonna start the first song run through at 7:20.
And here's another thing to think about. And what we used to do years ago was we'd have practice at 7. We called it worship practice at 7. We would meet and literally just sit in a circle and pray for each other, talk about some things for maybe 20 minutes, see how everybody was doing, touch base. And that was part of it. And everybody understood that. So what I'm getting at here when we talk about these goals, have a plan in mind, as you said, got to communicate it well so that when you're there, people know, hey, I'm coming. I still need to be there at 7, but I may not be playing at 7, but I'm there because we're going to pray for each other, or we're going to talk about something, have a meeting to communicate. Because worship teams should be much more than just playing the music. There should be a relationship happening there. There should be people, caring for each other, praying for each other, taking care of anybody's needs. It's, in my opinion, your worship band or your choir can be kind of like a small group. You want to get together, connect with people, and help each other. So whatever you want to do at this time, communicate it well, get the goals out there so that people understand it, so that people aren't just showing up and going, hey, thought we were starting now, or well, I came 20 minutes late because I know we don't start till 25 after. You want to communicate what's important on these things. So there's understanding. So
there we have it. We have tip number 1 is get your song map keys and stuff out days ahead of the rehearsal. Number 2 is
days or weeks, depending on who you are, what you're doing.
All right. Tip number 2, make sure you get the right stuff in front of people as they prepare before rehearsal.
That's a good, And
then I like have a real sound check.
Yeah.
and make sure that everybody, vocalists, team members, tech guys, musicians, all know the lyrics and own the lyrics, and then have a plan and goal.
Yeah, yeah. And not just know the lyrics, but kind of know the direction, where's going, where's everything going on this thing, that kind of thing. But yeah, so again, look, worship teams that do this well are very underrated. People don't understand that, but it takes a lot of effort. It takes work and effort to put together a good presentation, because it's all about, it's about worshiping God, but it's also new people coming in and having a good experience. Mm-hmm. And so, your team stands up Sunday morning or Saturday night or whatever it is during the actual service, and they don't have their act together. That's not the best. No, nobody's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. We're not talking perfection here. We're just talking about some tips that can help you and your team be better at what you do, and do it, for the glory of God. Do it well. And when you do those things well, it has a very positive effect on everybody in the church.
All right. Sounds great.
So there you have it. All right. So we are done. Is that good? Okay. So
we're done.
As we always tell people, if you have any feedback on anything we do on these podcasts, we always want to hear from you. Constructive criticism, praise, or whatever it might be. We'd love to hear from you. We're an organization that helps churches do streaming video, mobile apps, and content management stuff for churches and other things. We're more than just a company that does tech. We're a company that loves churches and wants to help churches in any way we can. And as we've just been talking here today, I've had a lot of experience in this area. Steve's had experience in other areas as well with churches. Just not in this area,
right?
But he's got a lot of experience, and all our team has.
As we prep for this, I mentioned I've watched the worship band practice.
That's all you need to know. That's all you need. Well, and you've been in the tech booth, so you got of it. You've done some of that. So again, we're all about helping your church, grow and become healthier. That's what we want to do. That's why we do what we do here. So we'd love to hear from you. Support at streamingchurch.tv. That's the email address. Memorize it. Support at streamingchurch.tv. We're done. He is Steve Lacy. I'm Phil Thompson. And thank you for your time today. We appreciate it. Have yourself a great day, and we'll catch you again next time on another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast. Take care.